Hello good people, and welcome back to another math video. This time we're going to talk about how to solve percent word problems. So let's get started. The first thing is this right here, the percent proportion, is very key to helping you solve any percent word problem. This sort of proportion can be used to solve any type of percent problem. Now, if you really understand percents, there are some shortcut sort of methods, but the nice part about this proportion is that it always works. So the way that you set this up is pretty critical. You need to identify what the part is in whatever the problem is talking about. We'll get more into this. You need to know what the whole is in whatever the problem is talking about. And of course, the percent, that should be pretty easy to identify because it will be the number that has the percent symbol after it. And then 100. Percents are always out of 100. So you never have to know what this number is going to be in this location. It's always going to be 100. So I'll prove to you by using a pizza kind of how this proportion works. So let's look really carefully at this proportion. So this proportion is saying that the part over the whole, written as a fraction, is actually equal to a certain percent over 100. So I told you I'd prove it with a pizza, so let's see it. Okay. Here is my pizza. It's a special personal pizza. It's only a 4-cut. Now on this pizza, I got pepperoni, and I wasn't super hungry, so I only ate one slice. So I have 3 slices left over. So I might ask you this question, here's my question: what percent is left? Well, let's go back to our equation over here of part over whole. What part of the pizza is left? Well, there are 1, 2, 3 slices left. So that's the part that is left. What is the whole? Well, this was a 4-cut pizza. So 4 is my whole. These numbers are really important to get in the right spot. What part of the pizza? Well, there's 3 pieces left. That's my part. The whole, well, it was a 4-cut pizza in the beginning. Now, we're saying that that is equal to a certain percent over 100. Well, there's our 100. So this leaves us with this kind of question. Well, what percent is this? If you remember back to previous lessons and previous videos, we can turn any fraction into a percent. First, we need to divide this to get a decimal. And if I divide 3 by 4, I get 75 hundredths. And then I know I can turn this into a percent by moving my decimal point 2 spots to the right, and that tells me that 3/4 is 75%. So right here, I've just kind of proven this whole proportion, and that is saying that the part over the whole is equal to a certain percent over 100. So 75% of this pizza is left. When you have to solve a percent problem, you're always going to know 3 parts of this proportion. Now, you might not think you know 3 parts, but let's just think about the previous problem. Did we know the part of the pizza? Yes, that was 3. Did we know the whole thing? Yes, that was 4. So then that leaves us this other side of the equation. Did we know the percent that would go right here? No, we didn't. We did not know that. But did we know the whole thing as a percent? Yeah, well, that's always 100. So before I even really started doing any calculation, I knew these 3 parts of the proportion. That's how it's always going to be. Now, it's not always going to be that you know this one, and this one. you might know 3 different parts. Maybe you don't know the whole thing, but you do know the percent. That's possible too. But you'll always know 3 parts. And you're always going to have to find one missing part. So in the previous example, we knew the 3, we knew the 4, and we knew that all percents are out of 100. Those were the 3 that we knew. So the one missing one for us to find was right here. Now, setting up the proportion correctly is really important. For example, if I had set this up incorrectly, now I'm telling you right now this is wrong, but if I had said, well, the part of the pizza I have left is 4 slices, and my whole pizza had 3 slices, so this is me making a mistake on purpose, then what percent of the pizza is left? And in this case, we are definitely going to get the wrong answer. You are not going to get 75%, because when you divide 4 by 3, you are going to get this decimal with the 3 repeating. So this is roughly 100, after I move my decimal point, this is 133%. So I would be saying then that 133% of my pizza is left. That's wrong. I mean, my math here is correct, but that is wrong in terms of how much pizza is left. We're going to get into a couple percent proportion problems real soon, and it's so important that you read very carefully. Take a look at how these 2 next sentences are similar, but boy, are they going to be different mathematically. The first one reads, what is 40% of, and then the problem would go on, versus 50 is 40% of what, and the problem would go on. So they have some similarities. They both have this 40%. They're both asking you a question. But these are not going to be the same sort of math problem. Now, I don't even know the whole rest of the problem, but I could begin to set things up. And I'll show you. I always am going to have 2 equal fractions in my percent proportion. So what do I know right now? And I know I haven't shown you the whole problem. Well, I know my 40%. That the 40 always goes here. And the 100% always goes here. Now look at what they're saying to you. This is so important. What is 40%? You don't know what the 40% is. So that means you don't know the part in this problem. Now, if the whole problem was written, we'd figure out the whole, but you don't know the part. Down here, the next one, let's set up another proportion. 50 is 40% of what? Well, here's my 40%. It's always out of 100. So that part is easy. Now it's saying to me, 50 is the 40%. So the 50 and the 40 in this problem are going to be equal chunks, because 40 is the percent. So in this case, we don't know the whole. Okay, first problem. 75 is 15% of what number? Let's set this up. It's always going to be our 2 equal fractions. The percent, that's always the easiest part to put in here. It's always going to be right there on top, and we always know that there's going to be 100. So I filled out 2 of my 3 parts already. So now let me go back and read it again. 75 is 15%. So that is telling you that those are equal in terms of this proportion. 75 is the 15%. So the 75 is our part. We don't know the whole. Next one. What is 30% of 150? Again, we're going to real quick set up our proportion. There's my 30%. That's the easiest one. It always goes right in that exact same spot. And percents are always out of a 100, so I can always write that down. So that part is done quickly. So now I have to go back and read it again. What is the 30%? Do you know? No, you don't know because it's asking you, what is 30%? So you don't know the part here. They're asking you, what is it? What is 30% of 150? The 150, in this case, is our whole. So now that we've seen two examples, we'll set up a third and then actually solve it. This one says 22 is 44% of what number? Okay, so real quick, we're setting up that proportion. 44%, my percent always goes here. Percents are always out of 100. That part's the easy part. So now let me look back. 22 is 44%. So they're telling you that those numbers are equal in terms of this proportion. The 22 is the 44%. So 22 goes here, and that means what's missing is going to be the whole. So how are we going to figure this out? I'm going to write this down here a little bit larger. 22 over some number, which would be the whole, is going to be equal to 44 over 100. It's really important that we recognize that these things are actually equal, because that tells us that these are equivalent fractions. How can we figure out the missing part in an equivalent fraction? Well, we need to look at the relationship of what we know. How do I move from 22 to 44? 22 and 44 have some kind of relationship. And the relationship that they have is that 22 multiplied by 2 would give me 44. Or if you want to see it the other way, 44 divided by 2 would give me 22. So that's that relationship. That means that the relationship down here needs to be the same. Why? Because these are equal fractions. They are equivalent fractions. So what number times 2 is going to give me 100? What number times 2 is going to give me 100? And that number is 50. 50 times 2 gives me 100. Or if I think about it the other way, 100 divided by 2 would give me 50. So that tells me what the whole is. The whole is 50. So 22 is 44% of what number? 22 is 44% of the number 50. Here's another one, a full-on word problem. Kai spends 15% of his day in science class. If science is 75 minutes, how long is the school day? Immediately set up your percent proportion. Find what you know. I know 15%. That always goes right here. Percents always out of 100. So that part's done almost immediately. So now let me go back and think about what I need to do with that 75. We've said you're always going to get three numbers. If science is 75 minutes, science is 75 minutes. Well, it started out by telling me that 15% of his day is science. This says science is 75 minutes. So 15% is science, and 75 minutes is science. So they're telling me about science in two different ways. 15% of the day in science, science is 75 minutes. So those two pieces are equal. So the 75 minutes is equal to the 15% of his day. So what I'm missing here is the whole. That's what's missing. So then I have to think about the relationship between the numbers I have. How can 15 move to 75? Well, it turns out that I have to multiply 15 times 5 in order to get 75. So that means I need to have the same relationship here because these are equivalent fractions. So if I multiplied the 15 times 5 to get 75, I have to multiply the 100 times 5 to figure out the whole. And 100 times 5 is 500. So 75 out of 500 is equal to 15 out of 100. So there are 500 minutes in Kai's whole school day. All right, I know this one was a lot, so we're going to do a quick recap. Number one, it is so important that we know the percent proportion, and it is always the part over the whole set equal to the percent over 100, and that will help you solve every percent problem. Every time you have the percent problems, you are going to get three numbers and you need to find one more. Now, sometimes the number that you get, you don't actually see in the problem because that is this 100, but you always know percents are out of 100. These are equivalent fractions. You know they're equivalent because you put an equal sign between them. So in order to solve the equivalent fractions, we just have to figure out the relationship. I started out with this one. What is the relationship from 4 to 100? We would have to multiply by 25. So you need to do the same thing on top. Multiply by 25, and you would figure out that the percent is 75. Our next video will deal with how to solve these percent proportions using a little trick we call cross multiplying. But for right now, you can stick with this method and solve them as equivalent fractions. So that's it. Might have to watch the video a few times. Good luck. We'll see you soon.